We are on the air, oh Kingsley. The Kingsley, where are we right now?
We are in Ferndale, Washington State, in front of a nice little bank, nice little local bank called the Whatcom Educational Credit Union. And they very nicely said that we could use their educational center on a sunny Saturday afternoon.
And what are you and I hanging around a bank on a sunny Saturday afternoon for? Why are we here?
We are here because we are men of integrity, because we are well-informed and conscientious, because we suspect that America's problems are very much political in nature, and we invited victims of political cheating to come here and be interviewed today.
And could you be more specific about these victims? What kind of victims?
Yes, I can. I am a big fan of Ron Paul, and I know a lot of Ron Paul supporters. He is running for president, and here in Washington State, the head of the Republican Party is named Lori Sotelo, and she told a bunch of Ron Paul supporters that there was some insurance scam, that they could not vote for Ron Paul at their convention in their district. And it was just a big, dishonest insurance scam. And, you know, I'm all in favor of honest elections and getting the truth out and whistleblowing. And it was my hope that some of the victims of the political shenanigans would come here today and tell their stories to get the word out.
And yet no one's come. Why? A serious question, oh great head geek of the Ron Paul faction in Whatcom County. Why do you think no one came? Is it because there are no victims? Is it because the Whatcom Republican Party was so honest and wonderful at that convention in Ferndale? Or what else?
I think that the reason why nobody came is that our local Republican convention was not obviously crooked. I think Ron Paul supporters were in the minority there and were outvoted. Now, I do have some problems with them having a computerized vote count. I think that's too secret, and anything could go on in there that we would not know about. So I'm really a big fan of paper ballots. I wish they would have done that. And
what about the business of having this, quote, unity slate, which was all the other candidates except Ron Paul? What about that? Was that considered cheating or just good organizing by them?
Well, you're asking me, oh, bungee breath.
Yes.
See, he thought it was funny.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm going to have a little diversion here.
Yeah.
Your great interviewer today is named Fred James, and he said he can fix anything with a bungee cord, so I thought that the salutation of a bungee breath would be appropriate. So he thought it was funny. Anyways.
I still do.
Good.
Go ahead. So to answer the question.
It seems to me that the unity slate was not crooked. I think that in a free country, you should be free to vote for who you want, even if it includes somebody you don't like. And that's pretty much what happened on the unity slate, because a bunch of Santorum supporters were evidently talked into voting for Mitt Romney.
Well, wait a minute. If they're talked into it, that's one thing. If they're forced into it, that's another. But we haven't found any element of force.
I'm not aware of any coercion.
All right.
With that.
Okay.
And you know, I think Ron Paul supporters may have also had the opportunity to join the unity slate, have sent a few delegates off to the state convention. But when I talked to Ron Paul supporters, uniformly, all of Ron Paul supporters refused to compromise their ideals and vote for a candidate, Mitt Romney, that they don't like.
Yeah.
Ron Paul supporters believe in peace and freedom and civil liberties, and they trust Ron Paul because his voting record has now been consistent for 3 decades.
Yeah.
So I think, in a sense, the absence of Ron Paul delegates on the unity slate is not due to shenanigans or coercion. It's really a matter of principle.
Okay. You got anything else? Because I want to switch.
Yes, in closing, I would like to put in my traditional request for world peace.
Okay. All right.
So you are now looking at a handsome ex-TV news anchor named Fred James. And Fred, will you please tell us how you became interested in Ron Paul, whose T-shirt you're wearing now?
Can you see it all, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, and my protruding stomach?
It's not too bad in the sledding, although if you want to be centered in the camera picture, you could stand 6 inches to your left. Oh, perfect.
All right, well, all right. It was it was the late 70s, and I was in Honolulu. I was doing a radio talk show there, and Ron Paul's name came up because he got into Congress, and he was one of the few people that argued for free markets and free men. And he called himself a libertarian, which I was and still am. In 1988, I was in Alaska doing talk shows, and I was a life member of the Libertarian Party. And although I understand you have to keep paying, so I guess I'm not a member. Anyway, he came up to Alaska, and he and I went all around Alaska doing various speeches and speechifying and money gathering. But I had a little pin here on my lapel. Up there you wear shirts because it's cold. Anyway, so I had a lapel pin that had IRS with a screw through it like this, and I would sell them everywhere. Alaskans hate the IRS. And so he said, "You're making more money than I am."
So you got to know Ron Paul
Yes.
a little bit in person when you were up in Alaska with him.
And let me add, I think that he was a dignified human being. He was a very suave doctor. Just to look at him, he's really well groomed, clearly straight and shaved, and nice tie, and clean clothes, and polite, clean fingernails. He's a doctor, very professional, and his attitude was, "I will meet you evenly along intellectual lines. I'm not better than you or worse than you. Let's talk freedom." That's the way he was, and he treated me very well.
All right. And from our discussions in the past, in addition to Ron Paul, it has been my observation that you are also enamored with an economist and author named Murray Rothbard.
Correct.
How did you become interested in Murray Rothbard? And tell us about what Murray says.
Well, Rothbard, I found out about him in the early 70s because I was doing radio talk, and I just met a bunch of libertarians, and part of their corpus was Murray Rothbard. And as soon as you read a little bit of Murray Rothbard, if you're halfway honest, you're caught up in him. He writes clearly, and he's got the hallmark of the great mind. He writes clearly. There's no doubt about, like Milton Friedman. He writes very clearly, hardcore libertarian, and funny. I mean, to read Rothbard, he doesn't say something like, "Oh, the draft is immoral, you shouldn't do it." He said, "The draft." He was a New Yorker. And he's a little kind of semi-bald New York guy. Not a handsome man, but psychologically beautiful. I mean, I love the man. He was just wonderful. He would say, he had a New York accent. And he would say, "The draft, Fred, it's taking a young man by the scruff of his neck and beating him to hell and killing him if you want." That's Rothbard. He wrote a number of tomes which are famous. Man, Economy, and State. He was a disciple of von Mises himself. And, well, I met him. I went to the East Coast and met him. And he treated me. I was a young man of about 26. I was nothing. I had nothing to claim. I was not a graduate of any East Coast university. I was just a libertarian. And he treated me like I was important. From the very day he met me, he used to hang. And he had this reputation for hanging out with young guys, the PhD types that he was instructing, and staying up all night and talking freedom with them. He was a wonderful guy, and he was a wonderful scholar.
Very good.
And he told a lot of jokes, and he was a great opinion molder in my mind, along with Ayn Rand and Hospers and Milton Friedman and Hazlitt and Bastiat and all the gang that we encountered.
So, Mr. James, when we talk about your interests, Ron Paul or economics, sometimes we also talk about opera.
Oh,
and
yes.
I know that you're a big fan of opera, and I was wondering if you could tell the viewers here how you became interested in opera.
Well, I have to say, who cares out there? You actually care why I love opera? I can't. It's generic. I liked opera at age 4. I heard Roberta Peters sing the soprano part of The Messiah on the radio when I was 4 years old. That would be a few years ago, at least in the 90s. Oh, actually a long time ago. And I was hooked.
Okay.
I've loved the operatic voice.
And what was the most recent operatic performance that you went to?
Oh, I haven't even written a review yet. I saw, went down to Seattle and we saw this gigantic screen about 100 feet wide. We saw a simulcast of Puccini's Madame Butterfly, one of the greatest operas of all time. And there'll be film at 6 on that, because I'm writing a review right now. Yeah, great stuff.
Not to be confused with Iron Butterfly. That would be totally different.
Yeah.
So in closing, I would like to also show the world the human side of you. I think you have a new cat now called Zappo.
Zappo.
Can you tell us about your new cat?
Well, who cares, though? That's these personal things. But I'll answer you straight. Zappo was now just a year old. And from the very beginning, we petted him, we hugged him, we fed him, we let him know that he can do anything he wants except scratch and meow loud. And he's been loved and controlled. And now he's starting to go outside. In fact, earlier today he met Lucky, the large neighborhood cat. And you know what happened? Nothing. They just sort of sat like back and forth and growled at each other. No fight. But he's beautiful. He's all black, and Lisa and I both like black cats. And he'll jump, and I can grab him, and he purrs, and I pet him, and he's everything a cat should be. Cats are sort of like tribbles with claws. They're beautiful animals. They're lithesome, and they're a little bit anarchists. I'm biased toward anarchists.
So, thank you very much for sharing your informed and erudite thoughts with us. In closing, if you had one parting message to give to the world on YouTube, what would that message be?
Okay, I will say something I think is deadly serious and important. I think that for the last 3 decades, this country has been run by statists. All the various politicians at the top, including the President of the United States, have been statists. That is, someone who prefer the power to be in the government, the state, rather than individuals, people. And I think it's turning us into a third world country, and it's evil, and I don't like it. And it's making us, it's ruining the economy, it's just doing everything evil. The only alternative is Ron Paul, and best, Ron Paul is starting to show huge crowds wherever he goes, and he just won the states, a whole bunch of states recently. He won what's really important, not the vote, which doesn't have any standing at all, but he won the delegates from those states. And this is what I hope is a thing that's going to continue, so that in Tampa we're going to elect, well, I'm not, but the Republicans, I hope there'll be a brokered convention and he can win out, and then he'll just wipe up Obama. And let's hope that happens, and then we'll see what happens. A free state will emerge.
All right. Thank you for your interview, Fred James.
You're welcome.
Enlightening and informative.